It is an honor and a privilege to be with you today and to serve as your Master of Ceremonies. Please rise for the entrance of the official party. Thank you. You may be seated. Before we begin this afternoon's installation ceremony, I am pleased to acknowledge the distinguished members in the audience who are in attendance today. First, our official party. The Commander-in-Chief of the Minnesota National Guard, Governor Mark Dayton. The 30th Adjutant General, the 30th Adjutant General of Minnesota, Major General Richard Nash. The 31st Adjutant General of Minnesota, Major General John Jensen. Minnesota National Guard State Chaplain, Colonel Tim Martinson. There are other guests among us today, including United States Senator Amy Klobuchar. United States Congresswoman Betty McCollum, representing Minnesota's 4th District. United States Congressman Tom Emmer, representing Minnesota's 6th District. United States Congressman Tim Walz, representing Minnesota's 1st District. State Representative Tony Albright, representing District 55B. State Senator David Senjum, representing District 25. State Representative Nick Zerwas, representing District 30A. State Representative Bob and Colleen Detmer, representing District 39A. State Representative Jim Nash, representing District 47A. Commissioner Mona Doman, Minnesota Department of Public Safety. Commissioner Kevin Lindsay, Minnesota Department of Human Rights. Commissioner Mike Rothman, Minnesota Department of Commerce. Mark Ritchie, former Secretary of State. Mayor William Drost, City of Rosemont. Mayor Janet Williams, City of Savage. the Archbishop of the Diocese of Minneapolis and St. Paul, Bernard Hebda. Civilian Aide to the Secretary of the Army, Major General Brevet Harry Sieben. Major General Matt Quinn, Adjutant General for the state of Montana. Major General Timothy Reich, Adjutant General for the state of South Dakota. Brigadier General Ben Carell, Deputy Commanding General for the state of Iowa. Brigadier General Greg Hasse, Special Assistant to the Director of the Air National Guard. Brigadier General Dirk Kloss, Deputy Commanding General of the 34th Infantry Division. Brigadier General Sandra Best, Chief of Staff, Air, Minnesota National Guard. Brigadier General Joanna Clyburn, Director, Joint Staff, Minnesota National Guard. Chief Warrant Officer Kip Knudsen, Minnesota Army National Guard Commander, Chief Warrant Officer. Command Sergeant Major Doug Wortham, Minnesota National Guard Senior Enlisted Advisor. Command Chief Master Sergeant Paul Kessler, Minnesota Air National Guard Command Chief. Command Sergeant Major John Lepowski, 34th Infantry Division, Command Sergeant Major. Now I'd like to introduce members of the Nash family. Wife, Jeanette Nash. Son, Ryan and Bobby Joe Nash. Daughter, Kelly and Paul Henderson. Sister, Rita Nash. Brother and sister-in-law, Earl and Jane Nash. Twin grandsons, Jackson James and Carter Richard. Granddaughters, Taylor Ryan and Grace Henderson. Now the family of Major General John Jensen, his wife, Cindy Jensen. His son, Jake Jensen. Daughters, Atlee and Kaylee Jensen. Father and mother, Roger and Diane Jensen. Father-in-law, Al Schmid. And sister-in-law, Kathy Jones. Welcome to you all in attendance today, and on behalf of Major General Nash and Major General Jensen, thank you very much for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise for the posting of the colors, the national anthem, and remain standing for the invocation. Our national anthem is being performed by the 34th Red Bull Infantry Division's Brass Quintet under the direction of Staff Sergeant Jill Johnson, and our anthem singer today is Sergeant Signa Munfram. Color Guard, post.
say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Sergeant Munford, and thanks to the 34th Red Bull Infantry Division Band. Please remain standing as Chaplain Tim Martinson delivers his invocation.
Please join me in a word. Almighty God, we ask your blessing on this change of command ceremony, those who are participants and those who are gathered here to witness the passing of the colors. As Major General Nash comes to the end of his illustrious tenure as the Adjutant General of the state of Minnesota, we look back and are thankful for his concern for the airmen and soldiers, men and women of the Minnesota National Guard and their families. We are thankful for his faithfulness to our veterans of every era and compassionate outreach to the Gold Star families who have laid so costly a sacrifice on the altar of freedom. Mostly we are thankful for his innovations, exemplary leadership, and for his loyalty to the governor, his superiors, peers, and subordinates. Lord, it has been a privilege working with him. Bless him and Jeanette and family as they open a new chapter together in their lives. We ask you to grant Major General Jensen the gifts of wisdom, courage, and strength. May his time as the Adjutant General of the state of Minnesota be one of blessing for him and Cindy and family and all who serve in the Minnesota National Guard and its civilian partners. As we grow and develop under his leadership, may we reach new heights of our organization's training, readiness, and mission. Guide his vision for the Minnesota National Guard. And as it continues to unfold, may we clearly see it as a sign of your favor. And may his values communicate a clear confidence and trust throughout our organizational ranks. This we pray in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Martinson. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. At this time, the Minnesota Army National Guard Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year, Staff Sergeant Daniel Sebo, will present a bouquet of red roses to Mrs. Jeanette Nash. These red roses reflect Mrs. Nash's devotion and dedication to the soldiers, airmen, and the families of the Minnesota National Guard. Her roses, as you will notice, are in full bloom, symbolizing the beauty and fulfillment of her time with our organization. Thank you, Mrs. Nash, for your tireless commitment. The Minnesota Air National Guard Airman of the Year, Senior Airman Amber Swanson, is presenting a bouquet of yellow rosebuds to Mrs. Cindy Jensen. As you will notice, these yellow rosebuds are symbolic of the warm welcome the soldiers, airmen, and families of the Minnesota National Guard wish to convey to Mrs. Jensen as Major General John Jensen assumes this new position in the organization. These yellow rosebuds reflect the new beginning for Mrs. Jensen and for the Minnesota National Guard. Thank you very much. Today, Major General John Jensen will assume the responsibilities of Adjutant General of the Minnesota National Guard. Major General Jensen is succeeding Major General Richard Nash, who is retired after 7 years as the Adjutant General for the state of Minnesota. Major General Nash's military service began with his enlistment into the infantry in 1972. He would later earn a commission as a second lieutenant in the infantry, following completion of the Officers Candidate School. General Nash has since commanded at all levels, from company to multinational division. He most recently completed a deployed assignment as Commander United States Division South, supporting Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2010. Prior to serving as the Adjutant General of Minnesota, Major General Nash served as Division Commander of the 34th Infantry Division, Special Assistant to the Combatant Commander, North American Aerospace Command, United States Northern Command. He also served as the Commanding General for the Multinational Brigade North, S-414, in support of Operation Joint Forge, Bosnia-Herzegovina, a tour he performed while serving as Assistant Division Commander Maneuver for the 34th Red Bull Infantry Division. Ladies and gentlemen, Major General Richard Nash.
Come on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Don. As I look across here, boy, that General Jensen certainly knows how to gather a crowd. Now, we're going to start off with laughter, and we're going to end with laughter, all right? This is a joyous opportunity. It's not going to be a eulogy. This is not a funeral. And so we're going to have a rather joyous time. And for those of you standing along the wall, it's okay to sit down, come up front, sit down, grab a piece of concrete. I can't order you to do that anymore. This is just a suggestion, because this may be a while. So filter up if you want to, or go get to the water fountain, check your emails, whatever, all right? But Governor Dayton, Senator Klobuchar, our senior but youthful senator, Congresswoman McCollum, thank you for being here, Congressman Walz, who is my congressman, and we're very proud of him in our district, and also a veteran of the Minnesota National Guard after serving more than 24 years. Congressman Emmer, thank you for being here out of your district. And to our Norwegian Consul General, Heiberg, thank you for being here. To our numerous state senators and representatives. To our state commissioners that have taken time out of their schedules to be here. I just want the citizens of Minnesota to understand and to know about the incredible work that each one of them do in their agencies and their selfless service to the state of Minnesota. And I have been honored to serve with each of you. To our mayors in attendance, to members of our congressional delegation staffs, to the adjutants generals from the great states, as mentioned, from Montana, South Dakota, and Iowa. Last evening we had the tag from Wyoming also gathering with us, but had to return because his governor was promoting a general officer today. Our civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, Major General Sieben, and to our former adjutants generals, General Shelito and General Andreotti. General Andreotti being the oldest surviving adjutant general in the state of Minnesota. You don't have to get up, sir. We know at advance. Don Shelby told me before I started, he did not think I'm going to be able to emotionally get through this speech. So one page done, we're doing okay. And to the Dunkers members that are in attendance this afternoon, but I would also like to start out by recognizing my Strategic Advisory Task Force members who are in the audience. If you would please stand. Don't be bashful, stand up. Thank you. Thanks for being here and also providing your exceptional contribution to our organization over the past 7 years. Another outstanding group of men and women that have organized and traveled around the world where our soldiers have been served steaks while simultaneously serving our families back here in Minnesota. And since 2004, they have served over 85,000 Mancini's renowned stakes. The Minnesota National Guard is eternally grateful to all of you. And will those serving our troops members please stand? This was an idea created by Pat Harris one late evening in Mancini's to do something good for our soldiers who have been or were deployed since 2004. And it includes our St. Paul businesses and our leadership here in Minnesota, as well as people as far away as New Ulm, Minnesota, with Ted and Jody Marty of Shell's Brewery. Special recognition of those who are always present for our mobilizations, our return ceremonies, and honoring our fallen, the Patriot Guard. Archbishop Hebda, thank you for walking across the street, so to speak, from the Archdiocese to be with us this afternoon. John and Jane Barnes, representing AM General, the supplier of our military Humvees, is in attendance. John was also the owner of Panther Racing, the open-wheel Indy car that was sponsored by our National Guard until several years ago. And Rich Cochise, owner of Light Fighter Supplies, Light Fighter, who also supplies us with our individual tactical tents, but more importantly, bullseye mosquito spray that we use at Camp Ripley. Hua? To Colonel Paul Waterbury and Major General Jerry Lang, my classmates from OCS Class 20, today closes the book on our last chapter. And Colonel Dave Smith, another one of our classmates, was not able to be here. To Roger Sitt and the Minnesota Military Appreciation Fund Foundation, thanks to your organization for what you have done for all service members who have deployed, have been injured, or who have been killed in combat. Thanks to Bill Popp and the members of the Minnesota Military Family Foundation that are here today. I also want to acknowledge individually Major General Neil Lloydel, Colonel Chaplain John Morris, Brigadier General Dirk Kloss, and Colonel Kevin Olson for reasons only they know. To all of our partners in our diverse communities throughout Minnesota, thanks for your support of our collective efforts making Minnesota a better place to live, work, and to build together. To our state and federal civilian workforce, I appreciate what you do every day in your public service. Those of us in uniform could not accomplish any of our state or federal missions without you. Thanks to our law enforcement and first responders, as we have collaborated in the last 7 years responding to safety concerns of our governor and our local elected officials. A warm welcome also to Tom Lyons, the on-air host of the Minnesota Military Radio Hour that was started 7 years ago as I was coming in as the Adjutant General, along with the support of Andrew Lee of iHeartRadio. We are now carried on 44 stations every week, reaching over 250,000 listeners in a coverage for all of our 63 locations where we have training and community centers. And one of those stations is represented here today and who I enthusiastically promote as the best radio station in the state. That is K-Check Radio, serving New Prague, surrounding communities in our counties. You can find it on streaming video, 95.5 FM, 1350 AM, and the general manager and on-air personality Tom Getzinger, along with another radio host, Tom Graham, and his wife Lonnie are with us. In all honesty, our veterans, their families, and our service members appreciate the programming that is done at iHeart, as well as those other stations that carry it across our state. In fact, Governor Dayton is a regular on Tom Lyons' program each year. Finally, thank you to a close personal friend of mine and an honorary Red Bull. Mr. Shelby, thank you for agreeing to MC today. And for your guidance, your mentoring, and leadership since we met in Iraq, when you came as an award-winning journalist and traveled across southern Iraq reporting and interviewing soldiers, local officials, sheikhs, and coming to some conclusions that the Minnesota National Guard and the 34th Red Bull Division made a significant contribution to the peace and the stability in southern Iraq. This man was so impressed that he actually has a Red Bull tattooed patch on his bicep. Don, also thank you for your service in the Air Force. You are a true gentleman and have been a strategic thinker as a member of our advisory task force. We are indebted to you. And to Major General John Jensen, Cindy, and the entire Jensen family gathered here today, to our general officers, our command sergeants majors, command chiefs, our warrant officers, veterans, and retirees, to our soldiers and airmen. You haven't taken my invitation. I see you're still standing there. Family and friends, and ladies and gentlemen. How about that 34th Red Bull Band? Huh? You know, Governor, I went back and looked up changes that have occurred in the past 45 years. And what I found that since my term, or since my enlistment or being drafted, I'll get to later, 45 years ago, I've served under 8 governors, 9 presidents, 9 Viking coaches, 9 Minnesota Twins managers, 10 Gopher football coaches, and 12 Timberwolf coaches. So it appears that being a governor is the best career choice for longevity. But good afternoon. I'm getting to the good part now. After 45 years, I'm not going to cover all those experiences and trials and tribulations during that particular time of my career, but I'm guessing that my draft board would be surprised today regarding today's event. And being the last, and I think this is the last, DOD service member in uniform that was drafted. Back when the conscription period of time, I had draft number 71. And I got the postcard from the president at that time saying greetings. Had it not been for that, I would not be here. You know, as I prepared for my transition a few months ago, working with the Strategic Advisory Task Force, Father McDonough, a member of our advisory task force in the Archdiocese, gave me some valuable advice. I know it wasn't in a confessional, Archbishop. He said, spend time finishing up your term strong and thank people for their contributions. So as you have already listened to a list of thank yous, I look at today's gathering as St. Paul's version of Detroit Lake's annual We Fest. And I'm going to celebrate your accomplishments, those of you that are gathered here today, and tell you about some of them and your contributions to our organization. Each of you are here today because every one of you in this room and those that could not make it have had a major contribution to your Minnesota National Guard over the past 7 years for sure, but many decades before. We are an organization that appreciates everything you have provided to us, our soldiers and our airmen. We are recognized nationally as a Guard that can be counted on to be relevant, ready, trained, and equipped to respond to our governor or president and to accomplish the mission with dignity and honor. Senator Klobuchar referred to that at the reception earlier today. Our soldiers and airmen have been deployed consistently since 9/11. We have met every call to arms. That is a testament to our military leadership and the quality of our non-commissioned officers, our warrant officers, and our soldiers and airmen, their families and employers. For that, I'm eternally grateful. A person that is not here today to personally thank, and that has had the most singular impact on my development and growth as a soldier and a general officer, is General John Vesey. Our former 10th chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under President Reagan, and he passed away in August of 2016. And my job, as I looked at it, has become harder since then due to not having access to his leadership style, his wisdom, his mentoring, and discussion of our world threats as he viewed them from his 46 years of experience. He was an amazing man, and I will always cherish his willingness to make me a better leader. His daughter Sarah and her two sons, Sam and Evan, are with us today, and we've been working together with the Minnesota Military Museum at Camp Ripley to provide her father's artifacts and historical items at the new 34th Division's General John W. Vesey Jr.'s Training and Community Center in Arden Hills that we will hopefully have a groundbreaking of in the spring of 2018, all depending on a National Defense Authorization Act being passed. Sarah is here today and is escorted by Major General J.B. Burns, who has traveled to us from South Carolina and who was one of General Vesey's speechwriters when he was the chairman. So if General J.B. Burns, Sarah, Evan, and Sam would please stand to be recognized. But getting back now to the thank yous. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today to install Minnesota's 31st Adjutant General, General Jensen. I cannot help but reflect back to 7 years ago when I was sitting in that seat beginning my transition with General Shellito. So much has changed. So many things that I could not have predicted 7 years ago. Governor Dayton, I want to thank you for your trust in me during this opportunity of a lifetime. You've been a truly remarkable leader and a commander-in-chief of our Minnesota National Guard. You have taken your responsibilities very seriously and are a leader among your fellow governors at the national level. He is the chairman of the National Governors Association's Homeland Security Committee and a member of the 10 governor, 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans on the Council of Governors that has direct meetings with the Department of Defense, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the White House, the FBI, the Justice Department, all with the purpose of making all of our National Guards across the nation better. You are a man of integrity, of vision, tenacity, and a strategy for making Minnesota better for every citizen. I have been honored to have learned many, many leadership skills from you. But through the triumph and through adversity, the men and women of the Minnesota National Guard have come through every time. And that has been the spirit, the mission, and the enduring commitment of our Minnesota National Guard for more than 161 years, even prior to statehood. Since September 11th, 2001, the men and women of our Minnesota National Guard, Army and Air, and their families have answered the nation's call to deploy, now get this, over 26,000 times. And as a result, today's Guard is battle-tested, is agile, flexible, deployable force with combat experience and a broad range of skills gained both on the battlefield and in their civilian careers. We are truly blessed by the capabilities, the intelligence, the work ethics, and the Midwestern values that we also share with the other adjutants generals here today from our part of the country. The Minnesota National Guard is a critical component of our total force, bringing to bear the experience and the skills of our citizen warriors wherever and whenever needed to confront the challenges of an ever-evolving, complex world. Today, our nation faces no fewer than 5 major, immediate, and evolving challenges: countering the prospect of Russian aggression and coercion, especially in Europe; managing historic change in the vital Asian-Pacific region, where China is rising, which is fine, but behaving aggressively, which is not. We're strengthening our deterrent and defense forces in the face of North Korea's nuclear and missile provocations, checking Iranian aggression and malign influence in the Gulf, and confronting global terrorism, including accelerating the certain defeat of ISIL. And as history has shown us, we can never perfectly predict the strategic future. We must remain flexible and agile in preparing for the unknowns that we cannot anticipate as we sit here today, and seek continuous improvement in all that we do. We don't have the luxury of choosing among those challenges. Over the last 7 years, we've had to do it all. And all around the world, your Minnesota National Guard does in fact do it all. From the Baltics, where the 2nd Battalion, 136th Infantry participated in exercises with numerous European nations, in Lithuania and Sweden, to the Pacific, where the 133rd Airlift Wing provided humanitarian support during Operation Pacific Angel. And to the Middle East, where 500 members, actually 725 members, of the 34th Red Bull Infantry Division are preparing for deployment next year to Jordan and Kuwait to enable local forces to take on and to defeat ISIL and to facilitate future stability in the region, along with the 148th Fighter Wing providing support to our forces and coalition forces in South Korea last year. We are critical to other states as well and our territory's emergency plans. Having sent forces, equipment, and supplies to assist fellow Americans in the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, as well as previously deploying people and helicopters to Houston after their devastating floods. Governor Dayton had this as the highest priority during the last 2 months. We also sent a response force to Florida, and we have assisted the TAGs of Montana with a state employee that performed air boss duties during their wildfire season. And right now at home, cyber warriors are being selected to use their skills and experience they've gained in America's innovative technology community to protect our networks and to do things like counter our adversaries' influence online. The days of the National Guard serving exclusively as a strategic reserve, called upon only in emergencies, are over. The post-9/11 environment has proven that the Guard is an indispensable component of the total force in day-to-day activities and large-scale operations, in planning and in execution, and in conventional conflicts and asymmetrical threats. Over the last 7 years, the Minnesota National Guard positioned itself as being critical to accomplishing all of our nation's security priorities. When I began my tenure as the Adjutant General, we set 6 priorities that guided our organization through decision-making and mission planning processes, ultimately ensuring a unified and consistent response to our governor and to our president. The past 7 years presented the Minnesota National Guard with many fluid and dynamic events that tested our organization's ability to operate under fluctuating budgets and strenuous mission requirements. Though the operational circumstances and challenges have varied, the Minnesota National Guard's 6 priorities provide a fundamental blueprint that ensured success of the mission while maintaining personnel, facilities, and equipment at optimal levels. The 6 priorities are fielding a competent ready force, maintaining an optimal force structure, cybersecurity and response, developing sustainable infrastructure, promoting our Beyond the Yellow Ribbon efforts, and improving the diversity and the inclusion in our force. And I'd like to reflect on some of those highlights of those pillars, and more importantly, the people that acted so magnificently to advance the success of our Minnesota National Guard. The first priority was a competent ready force, and we have provided the required personnel, the equipment, and the partnerships to ensure that we have that force ready to meet the needs of our state and nation. Throughout the last 7 years, the Minnesota National Guard did not drop below our required end strength. Very few states can say that. In fact, some states are perilously under strength and are not able to accomplish their missions without significant personnel cross-leveling and turbulence. Minnesotans have the values and the spirit to serve, and our recruiting teams have done an incredible job of connecting young applicants with opportunities. Our Army Guard recruiting teams, led by Lieutenant Colonel Ed Suarez and Lieutenant Colonels Mike Pazernick and Steve Burgraff previously, have truly connected to our communities through a team of great recruiting and retention NCOs. They have exceeded my expectations in the areas of providing opportunities for our young men and women as it pertains to race, ethnic, and gender. Our equipment situation has never been better, mostly due to the maintenance staffs that we have in both the Army and the Air National Guard, and the support of our very hardworking senators and members of Congress who provide resources. The competence of our force is also measured through the inspection results. Both flying wings consistently receive remarkable readiness ratings when inspected by the Air Force, with each wing earning Air Force Outstanding Unit Awards multiple times during my tenure. Talented maintainers keep our jets, our cargo planes, and our helicopters flying, and ground crews work round the clock to keep our wheeled and tracked vehicles on the move. This fact came into focus during last year's rotation to the National Training Center with the 1st Brigade Armored Combat Team. Under the watchful eye of then Colonel Promotable Lowell Cruz, the 347th Regional Support Group Commander, and our Camp Ripley maintainers, maintained more than 1,500 pieces of equipment, which were then rail shipped, which is about 9.5 miles of railroad cars, to the Mojave Desert for an intense 3-week exercise. And upon completion of that mission, they were shipped back by rail and returned to operational conditions. And many of these vehicles were then shipped immediately to Europe to support the exercise that I previously mentioned. Also critical to our competent ready force was the partnerships we had with other nations. Norway, our bilateral partner for 45 years, showcased their commitment to advancing our relationships. King Harald V and Queen Sonia traveled to Minnesota to observe and celebrate our relationship. And Governor Dayton reciprocated with a visit to Minnesota troops in Oslo when we commemorated the 40th anniversary of our exchanges, and which were then also supported by stakes by our serving our troops. Our state partner, Croatia, also contributed to the development of our competent ready force. What began as an exclusively military relationship after the fall of the former Yugoslavia, it has now blossomed into a whole-of-government approach that includes the University of Minnesota and the City of St. Paul Public Safety Department. And on the 20th anniversary of our relationship, Croatian President Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović traveled to Minnesota to observe our facilities and ranges at Camp Ripley. And Governor Dayton also then traveled to Zagreb to see our Minnesota National Guard joint engineering project help rebuild a school, again supported by serving our troops. The next priority we worked on was our optimal force structure, and we optimized that force structure by structuring our personnel, equipment, and capabilities to accomplish current and anticipated missions. The priority of ensuring that the Minnesota National Guard has the right units in the right locations, trained to do the right job, required constant evaluation and organizational flexibility that those in uniform sitting and standing here today accomplished. Coupled with budgets, strategies, and mission requirements, both state and federal, that changed from year to year, the Minnesota National Guard continuously focused on fine-tuning our force structure, upgrading our equipment, and improving our training efficiencies. The emergence of an active associate at the 148th Fighter Wing in Duluth is an example of a success in that area. Under the leadership of Colonel Promotable John Staffstrom and his predecessor, Brigadier General Frank Stokes, the wing energized the Duluth Military Action Committee to persuade the Air Force to station active duty pilots and maintainers at the 148th. The wing received additional equipment and people, and the active Air Force pilots are now able to get more time in the cockpit and have an increased opportunities for aircraft maintainers. The next priority, and one that I believe will continue to be essential, was the cybersecurity response. Our role is to secure our state's military network and collaborate with interagency partners to enhance our response to and recover from negative cyber threats. Working with federal, military, and state partners, and in particular the Minnesota Information Technology Services, the Minnesota National Guard maintained and defended its communications infrastructure while improving our ability to react to cyber events in the state. Colonel Steph Horvath, who just recently returned from the Virgin Islands, she was a by-named request to help them set up their civil and military communications equipment as another point where the governor sent assistance to help in one of our territories. We fortified relationships with businesses in the cyber community, developed international best practices with our partner nation, Croatia, and just this month established a cyber protection unit that will offer our soldiers and citizens the best cyber training available for both the private sector and the military. And the next priority was the sustainable infrastructure. Investing in our facilities are economically and environmentally sound, and they remain assets to our service members and our communities. Sustaining the infrastructure that facilitates training and maintenance for nearly 14,000 member force with thousands of pieces of equipment is more than a priority, it's a necessity. And by exploring ways to harness renewable energy and identifying the right solution for outdated facilities that are too costly or no longer viable to meet modern-day training objectives, the Minnesota National Guard continually invests in good stewardship and modernization. And we have a strategy that we will be able to execute out to the year 2035. From wind power at the Duluth Air Base to the high-tech de-icing pads at the 133rd Airlift Wing to the geothermal heating and cooling at Camp Ripley, the Minnesota National Guard has become steeped in environmental initiatives. And I am particularly proud of the partnership with Minnesota Power that yielded a 10 megawatt solar farm covering more than 60 acres of Camp Ripley's cantonment area, making it one of the largest solar fields in Minnesota and the largest of any National Guard installation in the United States. Our physical buildings have improved as well. Our former facilities and construction manager, retired Colonel Larry Herkey, who's now a state employee doing the same things for our state, advanced our footprint and the ability to train service members and serve the community with new readiness in Stillwater. And his work is now being carried on by Colonel Sol Sukit and his talented team at Camp Ripley. Sustainability also extends to the physical environment, and Camp Ripley's environmental programs are second to none. Led by former Garrison Commander Colonel Scott St. Sauver, Camp Ripley also serves as a game refuge and has become a hub of research and a place to determine best practices with wildlife. In fact, under the vision and leadership of former senior environmentalist Marty Skoglund, who's with us today, Camp Ripley has earned more Department of Defense awards than any other single U.S. military installation in the world. The next priority was to build and enhance the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon program, connecting service members, veterans, military families, and employers and communities to ensure the resilience of those who serve. Through a massive synchronization effort that ties military-connected families to employers, communities, resources, providers, and other service-supported organizations, Beyond the Yellow Ribbon fosters resilience among soldiers and airmen while creating awareness of the challenges of military service and providing an opportunity for Minnesotans to support service members, veterans, and their families. Since the first Yellow Ribbon Network was proclaimed in 2008, 98 networks, 233 communities, and 26 counties have emerged in Minnesota. These self-sustaining cross-community networks withdraw in other agencies. Community leaders and volunteers strive to support the service members, veterans, and our families of any age, from any era, that reside in Minnesota. That Beyond Yellow Ribbon program now also recognizes Minnesota companies that make a commitment to supporting the service members, veterans, and families. Yellow Ribbon companies go beyond and above in their efforts to hire and recruit veterans, in addition to connecting with military support efforts in their local communities. There are 57 governor-proclaimed Yellow Ribbon companies in Minnesota. This unprecedented support could not be possible without the incredible efforts of Annette Kuiper. Annette, time to stand up and take a bow. Annette is our Minnesota National Guard Director of Outreach. But none of these accomplishments would have been possible, though, without then Senator Dayton securing initial funding. Thank you, sir. Is diversity. We value diversity in our organization. to broaden our perspective, incorporate a variety of strengths, and better represent the communities that we serve. 7 years ago, the Minnesota National Guard established a diversity goal that aimed to shape a force with a commensurate percentage of diverse individuals relative to the state of Minnesota's population. An effort that also focuses on recognizing and embracing the values and the skills that come from different set of opinions, thoughts, attributes, experiences, and skin color. In 2011, 7.8% of our service members in the Minnesota National Guard were from diverse ethnicities, compared to the 16.6% that make up our Minnesota's population. But in 2017, the Minnesota National Guard closed that gap by attaining a 16.2% of its force from diverse ethnicities and approaching the nearly 18.3% of Minnesotans that currently come from diverse communities. We have worked closely with the Dayton administration to also accomplish his vision and priorities for diversity and inclusion in state government. Thanks to the hard work of Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Merricks and his team, we have more than doubled the number of diverse ethnicities in the Minnesota National Guard. And our relationships with the Native American community, the Hmong community, the Latino community, the African American communities in Minnesota continues to grow as well. We've also have had our first African American general join our ranks, Major General Brevet Dave Hamler, and our first Air and Army Guard female general officers, Brigadier General Sandy Best and Brigadier General Johanna Clybourne, and our first woman senior enlisted advisor who is now retired, Command Sergeant Major Cynthia Kahlberg, and that's just to name a few of the outstanding individuals from race, ethnic, and gender that have been promoted in the Minnesota National Guard. In 2016, I convened the Junior Diversity Council, a group of 20 junior enlisted soldiers and airmen and junior officers from across units in Minnesota to discuss issues and trends in diversity and the perspective of those who are newer to our organization. I would ask that those in attendance that are members of that Junior Diversity Council, raise your hand or stand up, please, if there's any here. There you are, stand up, come on. These are the faces of your future National Guard. These successes across our 6 priorities have been impressive, and I can say with certainty that these are your collective successes, not mine. We've had to focus and redirect our efforts over the last 7 years so that we could be successful as a team. And in my estimation, I think we've done that. We have functioned as a team and have achieved enormous results. And here's where we're going to get into the tough part that Don may win his bet, but none of our collective successes or my involvement over the last 7 years, here we go, would be been possible. I can't look at, I got to look at somebody else. Let me find somebody else to look at. I'll look at Senator Klobuchar. None of these would have been possible, excuse me where I go with this though, okay? Without the love, the support, the sacrifice, the encouragement, and the dedication of my wife, Jeanette. And my son, Ryan, and his wife, Bobby Joe, our daughter, Kelly, and husband, Paul, who's babysitting apparently. And a special recognition to my future projects after today, Jackson Carter Taylor and baby Grace, who's going to come back eventually. Here we go, Senator. Hal, you've been married to me now for over 44 years, and we started out on a blind date. She was 16, I was 17, she was from New Prague, I was from Jordan. So we dated 5 years before we were married. And as all of us have experienced, who serve in uniform, our families take on the harder burden. So I apologize for my absences. So I'm looking forward to spending and living the rest of our future years together. And so if I may, one little caveat to that. When I left at 5:01 on Tuesday night, Governor, I saw your lights were out of your office, so I left my last day at 1 minute after 5. I came home on Tuesday evening and I reported into my wife and I said it was my last day and what does she need done? And I shouldn't have asked, but anyway, she said the recycling has to go out. So I changed clothes and started gathering up the recycling and put it in the container, and the next thing I knew, she was trotting it out to the end of the driveway. So I looked out the window and she was out there for quite a while, and then all of a sudden the truck shows up. And pretty soon there were smiles and arms were waving back and forth, and it was like 15 or 20 minutes. And so she came back in. I said, so what was that all about? You're just delivering the recycling to the curb. And she said, well, she ran into a previous boyfriend she had before she married me. Who knew? In small town of New Prague, right? So anyway, I said, well, that was probably pretty cool. And I said, well, he's a recycling truck driver, and now I'm a retired major general. I said, how about that? You did pretty well. And she said, if I had married that recycling truck driver, he would be the 2-star general, and you would be driving his truck. True story. And I need to recognize my brother Earl, my sister Rita, and Earl's wife Jane for their interest and support during my career and my service, and for their assistance during multiple deployments. So in addition to that family I just mentioned, I've been surrounded by a group of gifted leaders, the likes of Grant Beal, Dave Elisuriel, Neil Lloydolt, Don Kerr, Warren Herod, Jerry Lang, Nick Ostapinko, Gene Andriotti, Mike Beeman, Rod Hayworth, who are with us today, and many, many non-commissioned officers that are too numerous to mention. But we've all been blessed with thoughtful commanders in the Guard at all levels and are dedicated to our soldiers and our airmen. And most of all, we have intelligent, patriotic, thoughtful, and savvy citizen soldiers and airmen that go to work every day and perform above our expectations. General Jensen, congratulations on being entrusted with Minnesota's most important asset, its young men and women. I've considered it an honor to serve alongside of you, and since we first met in 2001 in Kuwait with General Andriotti in a chow hall, and then serving with you in Bosnia in 2003 during our deployment, also to Iraq in 2009 and 10, and then also serving as our Chief of Staff for the last 7 years. You are uniquely qualified and suited to lead this fine organization and to advance it further beyond where it is today. You have earned the confidence of our governor. You have my confidence in your abilities, and I know that you have the trust and confidence of our commanders, our staff, our soldiers, our state employees, and our airmen, along with the relationships that we have built with those sitting and standing in front of us today. Congratulations, John and Cindy and the entire Jensen family. And to each of you here this afternoon, I want to convey that it has been my sincere honor and privilege to serve as Minnesota's Adjutant General and as a simple soldier in uniform. It's getting too quiet again. Come on. I thank each of you for your support and urge you to keep our soldiers and airmen in your prayers as they are in harm's way today and as we move into the future. And so most of you have asked what's next. Well, I'm going to unveil my plans to all of you now, and I'll I'll show you what I'm going to be doing. Come here, kids. Taylor, Jackson, Carter. Come here. Here's 3 of the 4 things I'm going to be doing. Here, Taylor. Oh, whoa. Come here. Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. So, Governor, this is for you, and I just want to show you on Taylor. Let me roll up her sleeve a little bit, but there's a cast on this, and it's a result of all-day kindergarten. Are you okay? All right, so Jeanette and I now bid you all a fond farewell. God bless each of you. God bless this great state, our governor, our elected leaders, and may God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Major General Nash. It's been an honor to serve you and will continue to serve you in any capacity, my friend. Governor Dayton will now present General Nash with the State of Minnesota Distinguished Service Medal. Throughout his long and distinguished career spanning 45 years, Major General Richard C. Nash has served the United States and the state of Minnesota in an exemplary manner. Under his leadership and vision, the Minnesota National Guard has excelled in every aspect. Attention to orders. Civilians, that means stand up. For exceptional distinguished service to the Minnesota National Guard and the state of Minnesota, while serving in numerous positions of increasing responsibility spanning a 45-year career, Major General Nash served with distinction in his efforts to improve the organization, provide leadership to soldiers and airmen of the Minnesota National Guard, and support families. He is a true visionary and has distinguished himself and the Minnesota National Guard. His constant pursuit of excellence is demonstrated in his character, candor, and competence. He is tireless in his efforts to improve the organization, soldiers, and airmen of the Minnesota National Guard. Major General Nash's dedication and leadership during his 45-year military career reflect great credit upon himself, the United States Army, and the state of Minnesota, and the Minnesota National Guard. Signed by the incoming Adjutant General of the state of Minnesota, Major John A. Jensen, this 1 November, 2017. Congratulations, General Nash. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Command Sergeant Major Doug Wortham, the Minnesota National Guard Senior Enlisted Advisor, will now present General Nash with a plaque on behalf of the airmen, soldiers, and employees of the Minnesota National Guard. And I invite the Nash family to come forward to join Governor Dayton in promoting Major General Nash to Lieutenant General Brevet in the Minnesota National Guard. General Nash will be joined by his son, Ryan Nash, and his daughter, Kelly Henderson. Attention to orders. State of Minnesota order dated 1 November 2017. The governor of the state of Minnesota has reposed special trust and confidence in the patriotism, valor, honor, and fidelity of Major General Richard C. Nash. In view of these qualities and demonstrated leadership potential and dedicated service to the Army, Major General Richard C. Nash is hereby promoted to Lieutenant General Brevet with the date of rank 1 November 2017 by order of the Governor of Minnesota. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant General Brevet Richard C. Nash. Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure now to introduce Kelly Henderson, the daughter of Lieutenant General Brevet Nash. Kelly.
Thank you all for being here today. It means so much to my dad and to our whole family. As I look out at everyone gathered here, it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. But as with any of these events, I suspect there are some of you who may be here and you don't know my dad. Perhaps you're a guest of someone, and it kind of begs the question why you aren't going on better dates, but that's not my business. But it's actually you, the people who don't know my dad, who I want to address my comments to, because I want to let you know about him a little bit more on a personal level. And I'm going to try not to get disinherited. My dad grew up outside of Jordan. He is the fourth of 5 children of John and Irene Nash. Notwithstanding his parents' hard work, the family lived modestly, and money was often tight. He attended St. John the Baptist Catholic School, where he gave the nuns ample opportunity to practice their behavior modification techniques. Although my dad's commitment to academics was at times tenuous, he excelled at sports. He was a varsity wrestler and baseball player. He actually made it to the state tournament, weighing in at a whopping 103 pounds. His senior year, he bulked up and topped the scales at 127 pounds. He played baseball as shortstop throughout high school and later played with town ball for the Jordan Brewers and the Jordan Ailers, the over 35 league, which I used to think was really old. But in everyone's life, there are certain turning points, places where you can choose a path that will ultimately lead to your destiny. And in my dad's case, it was whether or not to go to college. No one in my dad's family had ever gone to college, but he wanted to be a teacher, and so college was a necessity. When he told his high school counselor about this plan, the counselor scoffed and said that he would be better off working in a factory because he wasn't cut out to make anything out of his life, right? Undaunted, Dad went to Mankato State University, where he received his degree in health, biology, and physical education. In the spring of 1972, he graduated, and then his draft number came up in 1972 that summer. As he had said many times, he joined the National Guard not because he wanted to, but because he had to. He thought he was going to be a Phi-Ed teacher and a coach, and instead he became an executive at 2 precast concrete companies and a general. And so I'm often asked, what's it like growing up with your dad as a general? And I remind him that he wasn't always a general, but he was always a normal, down-to-earth guy. He loves raising geese, and he loves watching them follow behind him as he goes around the yard. He makes homemade sauerkraut and insanely hot salsa. He plants trees and tends to his gardens. He is a voracious reader and student of history. You could find no better tour guide to the Gettysburg battlefield than my dad. He knows more about Red Wing pottery than is socially acceptable. He is a ridiculously good marksman and hunter. He is an inventor, and he holds 10 patents relating to pre-stressed concrete. He is so comfortable in his own skin. He will treat people with the same level of respect, whether they are an ambassador or the guy sitting next to him at Lau's Bakery in New Prague. Personally, I always appreciated that my dad never treated me like a girl. When I was 10 years old and I would tear around the yard on my pony named Dilly Doo, I would fall off or find myself in otherwise moderate peril. In no time did he suggest that I do something less dangerous. As ponies moved to basketball and basketball gave way to college and then law school, I always knew I had his full support and encouragement. I was expected to succeed in whatever I chose to do, and those choices were limited by me. Thank you for that, Dad. You will never know what an incredible gift that was and what a difference that made in my life. Without question, my mom has been and always will be the most important person in my dad's life. He will acknowledge that he will not be where he is today and could not do what he has done without her love, support, and devotion. She often single-handedly maintained the home front during deployments, summer camps, and countless other periods where Dad had to be away, all the while working as an elementary school teacher. She is literally the wind beneath his wings. Dad takes the admonition from the book of Matthew seriously, which is, be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. I often learn of a kindness that he has done because someone else has told me about it. I distinctly remember when he was at a change of command ceremony at Camp Ripley, and we had dinner afterward in St. Cloud. In the parking lot, there was an elderly man with World War II plates who was trying to get in his car and was having some amount of difficulty. My dad went over there to help him in, and they had a conversation. I could see him thanking this man for his service. But had I not seen this, I would have never known it had happened. So for those of you who have not had an opportunity to meet my dad, please introduce yourself to him. He's not scary. Although he is a bit of a prankster, and so if he tells you that the only way you can test a 9-volt battery is by putting it on the inside of your lip, take it from me, no. You can catch him, if you can't catch him here, you will find him at home spending time with my mom, cutting grass while listening to K-Check radio, hunting, clearing brush, or playing with his 4 grandchildren. The young man whose guidance counselor told him that he wouldn't amount to anything completes a 45-year military career as a 2-star general. He has met sitting American presidents and kings of foreign countries and worked with countless members of Congress. He knows Don Shelby. He's traveled all around the world and made friends with people of different races and religions. He has transcended small-minded admonitions and serves as an inspiration that belief in yourself, hard work, tenacity, and grit can take you farther than you ever imagined. Thank you, Dad. We love you, and we're so proud of you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure now and honor to introduce to you the Governor of the State of Minnesota, Mark Dayton.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I've already blown my most important assignment, which is to try to pin the medal on General Nash's jacket there, so I apologize for my fumblings. That takes me back to my days of trying to pin corsages on his terrifying experience. But General Nash was quoted in today's Star Tribune John Rash interview, and it sent an email to men and women of the Minnesota National Guard, and he said, "I believe the world today is more dangerous and volatile than at any time since 9/11/2001. Never has our nation needed a strong National Guard more than it does now." And those words ring very true of me. I served in the United States Senate, starting with virtually 9/11. Served with General Sholto, then the Adjutant General of the Minnesota National Guard. Picked up again as governor with General Nash. And the challenges, the need for a very effective, excellent Minnesota National Guard never been greater. And all of you who serve, who've been on multiple deployments, who've been all parts of the world, away from your friends and families, I thank you. I salute you. I'm in awe of your patriotism and your courage and the way in which you return again and again to service of our state and our nation. To all of you, I want to send a round of applause for your service. General Nash, that excellence comes from excellent leadership, and you have served our state and our country extraordinarily well. Governor Tim Pawlenty, my predecessor, deserves the credit for selecting you, General Nash, and he made a superb choice. And you have just shown over these last 7 years the most extraordinary leadership, one of commitment to excellence, one with real vision, and also one with heart. And that's what I'll remember about you even more than your other achievements, General Nash, is the way you care about the men and women who serve with you and the men and women whom they serve. Your leadership has been just extraordinary, and all of us in Minnesota are deeply in your debt, so thank you very much. With his characteristic modesty in this interview today, General Nash demurred about all the accolades that he has deservedly received. And he said, again, quote, "I would rather have them thank our families and our employers. Soldiers will do the jobs they're trained at. They'll go where we deploy them. But the hard job is for families and kids they leave behind. And the turmoil that causes for our employers being able to support that. Those are the real heroes." Once again, General, you're right on target. All of you who are family members in particular and also friends of those who serve, you are the real heroes. It is you who are left behind, who have to pick up the pieces, have to keep families together, have to go to school without knowing where your father or your mother is at the moment, and who endure those hardships again and again because you believe in what your women and men you live with do, and you believe in the importance of it, and you endure those hardships. So to all of you, I salute you, and I say on behalf of all Minnesotans, thank you very much. General Jensen, you're now the recipient of this legacy, as General Nash was before you. Commanders come and go, governors are multiples, and everyone else, and yet the consistency is the Minnesota National Guard, the commitment of the men and women who serve and those who lead it. General Jensen, I haven't had a chance to work with you yet, but I spent a great deal of time studying your resume and looking at your qualities of leadership, and they're clearly outstanding. You'll follow with General Nash, and you'll take the Minnesota National Guard beyond, as you should over the next 7 years. All of us who are in office now will be privileged to serve with you, and those who succeed us into office will have an even long period of time in which to work with you, make the Minnesota National Guard even better than it is today. So General Nash, General Jensen, I thank you very much for the opportunities to work with you, and thank you, both of you, for your extraordinary service.
Thank you, Governor Dayton. The Adjutant General is the administrative head of the Minnesota Department of Military Affairs and the leader of the Minnesota National Guard. With nearly 13,000 members operating in 60 facilities throughout the state, it is the 6th largest National Guard in the United States. Since 2001, the Minnesota National Guard has deployed more than 26,000 citizen soldiers and airmen in support of military operations around the world. The Guard also assists local authorities during natural disasters at the direction of the governor. Major General John A. Jensen began his career with enlistment into the 168th Infantry Regiment of the Iowa Army National Guard in 1982. He later earned his commission in 1989 from the United States Army Officer Candidate School, Fort Benning, Georgia. Upon commissioning, he served in a variety of command and staff positions in both the Iowa and Minnesota Army National Guard. Major General Jensen commanded the 2nd Battalion of the 135th Infantry of the 1st Armored Brigade Combat Team 34th Infantry Division. Before assuming command of the 34th Red Bull Infantry Division, he was Deputy Commanding General for U.S. Army Africa. Major General Jensen has deployed in support of Operation Desert Spring in Kuwait, Operation Joint Forge in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. At this time, Governor Dayton will administer the oath of office to Major General Jensen. Governor, General, please step forward.
General, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, John Jensen, do solemnly swear
I, John Jensen, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota
against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the Governor of the State of Minnesota,
that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the Governor of the State of Minnesota,
that I make this obligation freely without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion,
that I make this obligation freely without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Adjutant General of Minnesota upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Adjutant General of Minnesota upon which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Very good, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Ladies and gentlemen, the 31st Adjutant General of the Minnesota National Guard, Major General John Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chevrolet.
I'm going to introduce you right now.
Okay, well, I think that might be enough. I think that's enough, yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for that welcome. I haven't done anything yet, so I really do truly appreciate it. Governor Dayton, Lieutenant General Brevet Nash, distinguished guests, soldiers, airmen, friends of the Minnesota National Guard, but most of all, the Nash and the Jensen families. It's an honor and a privilege to stand before you as the 31st Adjutant General of the Minnesota National Guard. Cindy and I would like to thank everyone who has been so gracious and thoughtful in their congratulations, good wishes, and encouragement during this time. And as I was getting ready for the ceremony, I stopped in the latrine to make sure my tie was straight, and an airman asked me, he said, "Sir, you going to have a long speech today?" And I said, "Well, it depends. If General Nash has a long one, I'll have a short one. If he has a short one, I'll have a long one." So based on the brevity of General Nash's comments, I am prepared to give the long version. Actually, at the risk of this ceremony lasting longer than General Nash's military career, I'm going to opt for the short version. And the reason why I can opt for the short version today is because General Nash really laid out what this organization has been about and what this organization is about. Some leaders are able to put their organization on a path towards success. Few leaders can put their organization on a 6-lane highway towards success. And sir, I know you're extremely proud of what we've accomplished, as we are as well. It's been a tremendous opportunity, sir, to serve you, to learn from you, and to be with you. And so thank you for that opportunity, sir. And I know you've stated today that your calendar's full coming up with Jeanette and the grandkids, and you've earned that, sir. You're a great example of the citizen soldier and a great American patriot, so thank you for that. Governor Dayton, thank you as well, sir, for this wonderful opportunity. I am humbled to stand here before this group of people and look out, not only the soldiers, the airmen, and the family members, but all of the great community support that we get. And sir, you told the story of what we've been doing for the past 7 years, and I can pledge to everybody in this room that what we're going to do is exactly what General Nash has described there, and we're able to do that really because of two unique elements of your National Guard. The first one are our units. Our units report the highest rating standards across not only the Army National Guard and the Air National Guard, but the entire Army and the entire Air Force. But it's not about the number of soldiers that we have. And while, yes, all of our formations are above 100% strength, it's not about the number. It's about the talent, it's about the diversity, it's about the professionalism, it's about the expertise that you bring to work every day, it's about the work ethic that you bring every day, and so much more. I am honored to be your Adjutant General. I look forward to serving with you over the course of these 7 years and serving you over these 7 years. The second unique element of your National Guard is the community support that we have. Now, we often describe this as the yellow ribbon, and the yellow ribbon network is extremely important to what we accomplish, but it's more than that. For our state legislators, it's state initiatives, Governor, like your Veteran and Service Member Month this month of November. It's how you assist us with state tuition that allows us to attract and retain the best soldiers and airmen that the state has to offer. Our federal CODEL as well, your work in items such as the federal initiatives like the 12304 Bravo work that you did. 12304 Bravo, quite honestly, is kind of code for the CODEL here in Minnesota work together to make sure that our reserve component soldiers, when mobilized, receive the same benefits that their active duty brothers and sisters did. It was your work as part of the Commission of the Future of the Army, and so much more. In Minnesota, we often hear the term Minnesota nice, and sometimes it isn't necessarily meant in the nicest way. Our communities across this state are great neighbors to our service members and fabulous neighbors to our family members. And you do that because you care. You honestly and faithfully care about your fellow citizen, and I appreciate that. We cannot do what we do every day. We could not have accomplished what General Nash laid out without your support. We need that to continue, quite honestly, because our airmen and our soldiers are going to continue to carry the national security burden along with our active component brothers and sisters. To my family, thank you for your support, your love, and allowing me to do the things that I do. And finally, as a great leader once told me, John, if you have a ceremony and the band's there, nobody will remember what you say as long as the band plays really well. And so I would like to thank not only the 34th Infantry Division Band, but our entire SGS team, the Joint Force Headquarters, the Public Affairs team that helped put this whole thing together. And so we could pause today and recognize and thank General Nash for his 45 years of service. Thank you. God bless the state of Minnesota. God bless America. And God bless our service members and family. Thank you.
Thank you, General Jensen. Chaplain Martinson will now deliver the benediction.
Please join me for the benediction. Good Lord, preserve and protect the governor of the great state of Minnesota, our new adjutant general, our service members and their families. Grant us grace and mercy and peace, now and always. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Martinson. Please stand or remain standing for the playing of the Army and the Air Force songs. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the retiring of the colors and the exit of the official party. Color Guard, post. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Please join the Adjutant General, Major General John Jensen, and his family for a reception immediately following this ceremony. Thank you very much.